Light is the source of all life. For millennia, our ancestors knew this in their hearts. They worshipped the very sun that kept the evils of the dark at bay. Our species have derived theologies and mythologies on this very concept. The segregation of light and matter has been integral to those beliefs. But what if we could produce light in a lab? Would that disprove the very theories we have come to believe as fact? Well, what if we could create matter from light itself? Would that change anything at all? What if I told you we have already done it?
In today's video, I'll be looking into research about scientists creating matter from light, pure energy. The relevance of this research comes as a live example of the implications of the most famous equation created by Einstein, E equals mc squared, which features the equivalence of matter and energy, along the line of relevant quantum physics experiments in the last few years where modern scientists have recreated previous quote-unquote thought experiments proposed by the pioneers of the first quantum revolution, which assumed the world of quantum physics would bring about a quote-unquote spooky, mind-boggling effect in the way we look at reality. In the words of the 2022 Nobel Prize winner Alain Aspect, quantum mechanics resists all possible attacks, meaning that all the weirdness of quantum physics is real. And in today's video, another thought experiment comes to fruition, the Bright-Wheeler process, where pure light can potentially be transformed into matter, giving us an insight into what may lie behind the process of creation of our physical material world. This comes along the line of a series of videos where I am putting forward an argument that at the core of our reality we find quote-unquote light, and the relationship between this theme of light in ancient philosophies, religion, altered states of consciousness, featuring mainly near-death experiences where people go and meet a conscious light, and they realize that this might be the truth behind everything. At the very least, this proposes a lot of questions and answers, but mainly questions. And as we are beginning to realize, science might be onto getting a clue to figuring out what lies at the core of our reality. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so as mentioned in this video, I'm going to be looking at this article, Physicists Transform Pure Energy into Matter and Antimatter. So, pure energy, I'm making this video as part of ongoing research, and this is going to be also on the playlist that I started a while ago called Everything is Light, or Everything is the Light. So there are two playlists, one where I go with the whole idea that everything is light, and the other one where that talks about that Nikola Tesla interview where he stated supposedly everything is the light. Everything goes together. What I'm doing is I'm setting a philosophical proposition alleged by Nikola Tesla, and I'm looking into all of the ideas that he put forward, and then I'm setting a scientific framework to understand this idea that everything is a light. Now, when it comes to the scientific framework, I made 3 videos on this, I think. First one was bioluminescence. The second one was on potentially everything is light, a scientific theory that was really interesting, where I mentioned this whole thing that everything at the core is pure energy, and I guess this is going to be the third one. So I'm going to be doing all these playlists, but in any case, this is part of this scientific framework. Why is everything is pure energy? As I mentioned in that argument, and as the author of that theory mentions, when you look at molecules, inside the molecules there's atoms, inside the atoms there are neutrons, electrons, so on and so forth. These are mass particles. These particles have mass, but then when you go a little bit further, you find massless particles, and then you find the quarks and gluons, so on and so forth. It has to do with the Standard Model. If you don't know what the Standard Model is, just look into the Standard Model. On the previous video, potentially everything is the light. I linked to the actual theory, and he explains a little bit into that Standard Model and how everything seems to be at the core. And when we talk about light, we're talking about electromagnetic energy. So now It says here, as I mentioned, I was gonna post this this research where they are saying that physicists transform this pure energy into matter, into mass particles. So as I said, when you go into the atom, into the electrons, so on, you find that at the end, beyond quarks and beyond gluon, the theory from Einstein, the theory of string theory, suggests that everything beyond that is pure frequency, pure energy. These filaments, these strings that vibrate in different frequencies and create different types of matter. So now they kind of, right here, what they did is they reverse engineer the process, because this is how we believe matter is done. Matter comes from energy. Now, okay, so matter comes from energy. We don't know how this happens. We don't understand it. We kind of have the theoretical foundation for this, but we just don't really know what happens. And they managed to actually do it with technology, with stuff that I'm going to go into in just a second. They managed to create matter. They created matter from pure energy. This confirms that the famous equation is true. So I'm going to go into this, but I just wanted to set this framework. All the links relevant to this are going to go below. I'm going to be referring them as I go into this article. And of course, this is, I found this other article if you prefer this one. And we're talking about like making matter from collisions of light. And I've been talking about everything is a light and how everything seems to be the light. And people still get lost in connotations. And the previous one, light equals electromagnetic energy. We're talking about pure energy. Are we talking about pure energy? Are we talking about light? It seems to be the same thing. And now, why is all of this important? Why is all of this becomes interesting? Because we have new data from research on altered states of consciousness, which suggests that this pure energy, it is actually conscious. It is our consciousness. And in this year, I'm going to start making this argument a little bit, I'm going with this argument a little bit further. I'm writing on this, and I'm going to have some playlists, which I have not yet decided if they're going to be public playlists or private playlists for members. But I'm going to be working on this argument, and I'm going to be writing on this. And hopefully I will be having this book by half of this year or the third quarter of this year. In this book, in this work, in this argument, I will go into, okay, all of this is nice and fun. Yes, everything is the light. When you go into Manichaeanism, when you go into the ancient philosophies that say, okay, this correlation between light and divinity, and now we have the new data from altered states of consciousness, specifically near-death experiences when they meet a conscious light and they become this light, and their consciousness is the light. So there's a mysterious aspect to this light that science is setting a framework for, a basis for, and it's all right here. Everything is pure energy, everything is light, and this light, when goes through a process that I'm gonna go into just a second here, it creates matter. It creates our physical material world that we experience every day. Alright, so as mentioned, I'm going to be going into these articles. This is articles. There are going to be a link below both of them. I'm just going to go through this one right now. And there is the research. If anybody just wants to go straight to the research, you can go through the research. This is going on the playlist ongoing research, where most, like every single video in this playlist is linked to a published article, a published research. This is a physical review letters. However, this one requires a subscription. So there's another one here where they uploaded this to the Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Scientific and Technical Information. So we're talking about the U.S. Department of Energy, Energy and Science. If you link to the PDF, you find the whole article right here. You can go through it and just digest it little by little. But we're talking about energy. Why is all of this important? As I said, pure energy, light. We're talking about the ideas of Tesla that were suppressed, this quote-unquote ether, this energy that is everywhere, and as we are gonna see, it creates matter itself. It's Office of Science, nuclear physics. You know, we're tapping into the whole idea of free energy, which is very, very delicate. So let's tread through it carefully. Okay, a new study published in Physical Review Letters, the first one that I have, presents evidence for the creation of matter and antimatter from energy, specifically light particles, photons. This is what we're talking about, light particles. In doing so, it offers a splendidly concrete example of the world's most famous equation, E equals mc squared. This is what the equation is all about. It's the equivalence between energy and matter. The equation derived by Einstein that dictates how energy is equivalent to mass times the speed of light squared. In the study, physicists at the relativistic heavy ion collider, part of the Department of Energy's Brookhaven National Laboratory, were able to turn light particles, which are energy, into pairs of electrons and positrons, which are matter, matter being that which has mass. So as I said, if you think about a molecule, if you go into the quantum level and you think about a molecule is composed of multiple atoms. So when you go into these individual atoms, these atoms are made by neutrons and electrons and so on and so forth. So all of these molecules and atoms and everything, all of this has mass at the fundamental level. They are right there. They are particles. They are things that are mass. When you go further into it, then they become massless particles like photons. This is a process within the quantum things that happen that these photons are created. So they're looking literally into the foundational blocks of reality, which is something really exciting. And so we're gonna see here what they are doing is they're turning all these mental experiments, these thought theories, into reality. All the weirdness in quantum physics is turning real. I'm gonna go into it in just a second. So this is important. Why did they create like a cup? Did they make up a table out of nowhere? No, they created electrons and positrons, which are matter and antimatter. They created particles through this process that I'm gonna go in a second, but this is highly relevant. Okay, so the research were able to generate matter and antimatter utilizing beams of gold, atoms of gold. You want to see the whole thing. I realized that I take too long to make these videos, so I'm going to try to go a little bit faster through them. As I said, if you want to go through the whole thing, it's right here. Everything is linked below. Go through the whole thing. I'm just going to go through the scheme through it. The ions create a strong magnetic field which rotates around them. This magnetic field interacts with the perpendicular electrical field, and packets of the resulting electromagnetic field are what we call photons or light. So they're showing these particles, and these particles have a field. Now, I've been talking also a lot about these electromagnetic fields, and the electromagnetic field, the gravitational field, as Einstein produced, as he was saying. We think about matter in terms of energy within fields, and not the other way around. We don't have matter which create fields. We think of matter within the fields. I've been working in part of what I'm doing. I'm gonna start playlists having to do with near-death experiences, and in these near-death experiences, people explain how they feel when they pass on, and when they explain these out-of-body experiences, they explain that they become something else, something like a massless sort of expansive thing. Which is what I'm saying. Like I am struggling with this at the moment. I don't know if I'm gonna make this playlist public or not, because there's a huge argument here. So we're talking about science and energy and fields, and what these altered states of consciousness are telling us is that these fields are who you are and what you are, and you become this field, and this field turns out to be conscious. It is consciousness itself. So when we talk about the quantum field, we're talking about all these little things that are in science and completely alien to us, or are we talking about the fundamental reality of what we are as human beings? All of that, this is what I'm writing about here. So as I said, this channel is a catalog of this science, these scientific facts, this published research, these philosophies. When I talk about pragmatic philosophy, it's usually theories from scientists which do not have an actual research. This is why I throw them into pragmatic philosophy, but they're talking about the same thing. So I'm setting a scientific framework for something much bigger than that, a holistic approach to a larger cosmology. So yeah, we're talking about electromagnetic fields along this this framework that I'm creating. I made a video in the framework for the soul, something like that, where I go into the ideas of Rupert Sheldrake and his morphic resonance theory, where he talks about these fields which have intelligence and which might be behind forms, which is so relevant because we're talking about how these electromagnetic fields, these fields create the matter. So how they created matter through these fields, through the interaction with light being shot with a gun or laser or something like that. I'm going to go into it. It's right below. And they created this matter by the interaction with the fields. The field is so important. So I'm going to link that somewhere on the screen. Rupert Sheldrake on morphic fields, morphic resonance, which is the same thing. I mean, he conceives this as the morphic field, but we might be talking about the electromagnetic field. We might be talking about the quantum field, gravitational fields. We don't really know what's beyond all of these things. We're talking into the nitty bits of the creation of the universe. Alright, so the article goes on. It explains right here, full energy collisions between gold ions at Brookhaven's RHIC as captured by the star detector. So this is what happened here, all these ions. So this is incredible technology that before we didn't have. It says here, in 1934 is the ones who suggested this, Gregory Bright and John Wheeler. But we just didn't have the technology. This was some sort of a thought experiment. So now we have the technology. They did it. Here they explain more or less how they did it. Shang-Bu Shu, sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, Brookhaven lab physicist and a member of the RHIC's star solenoid tracker at RHIC collaboration, described the experiment setup. We have two clouds of photons moving in opposite directions with enough energy and intensity that when the two ions graze past each other without colliding, those photon fields can interact. This interaction is what creates the pairs of electrons and positrons. So two clouds of photons moving in opposite directions. They're shooting them with all this technology. They're doing this. We couldn't do this before. You can think, okay, so we can create matter. Why don't we create just matter and like play God? This is incredibly amazing technology that is managing to prove these theories, which at some point were simple theories because we just couldn't prove them. How they managed to do it in opposite directions with enough energy and intensity that when the two ions graze past each other without colliding, it's not that they are colliding with each other, those photon fields can interact. So this is really important. It's not about the photons colliding with each other. It's about how the fields interacting with each other react. So again, the importance of the field is not only about the particles. It's the field. What is the field? Why is this important? Because when ancient philosophies, and I'm going to go a little bit further into this right here, otherwise I'm going to forget it. When these ancient philosophies talk about this quote-unquote spirit that is everywhere and that is omnipresent and omniscient, what are we talking about? And when the Samadhi Buddhists who reach this Samadhi state, they say that they can go into the heavens and transcend mountains and go past. And when you look into the research of psi phenomenon like remote viewing and things of this nature, as I'm saying, it seems that these fields, these particles, this quantum is alive. It is conscious. It is consciousness itself. Imagine if there's an electromagnetic field, a gravitational field. There are fields all around us that we cannot see. Imagine if we could transfer our consciousness to this field and navigate all of this. Could this be possible? That sounds like completely irrational, but this is exactly what some of the evidence on altered states of consciousness and the theoretical framework is suggesting. If you don't want to believe me, I made a video about touch upon a little bit because it's a delicate matter and I don't want to go a lot into it because it has to do with government agencies which looked into all of this and they publish papers and they're all over social media and you can Google these things. Just do research on the Monroe Institute and look for the Gateway project and look for documents online, and you will see what I'm talking. I made a video about it. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen. I framed it around the idea that the research on consciousness is going mainstream, but I'm talking about agencies, and I'm talking about how reality might be a hologram, and we have official papers on this. So just go into this. We're all talking about the same thing. I'm setting the scientific framework for all of this right here. Alright, there was a similar result achieved in 1997, SLAC National Accelerator Laboratory. The process at the time was more complicated and involved more steps, and it stands out as clear evidence of direct one-step creation of matter-antimatter pairs from collisions of light, as originally predicted by 20th century physicists Gregory Bright and John A. Wheeler. So this is the thing, as I said, in this other, they mention it here as well, 1934, physicist Gregory Bright and so on. They are the ones who, like, I'm gonna go Wikipedia because it's like simple information to access. If you think that absolutely anything that is in Wikipedia is absolutely wrong, just go to the article. It's right here. It's the same thing. Just Google it. Bright-Wheeler process. It's a proposed physical process in which a positron and electron pair is created from the collision of two photons. It is the simplest mechanism by which pure light, again, this is what we're talking about, pure light. If you go into the atom, you find pure energy. Energy is soul. If you want to know the mysteries of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, which according to Einstein's string theory, this is how everything at the core is these filaments, these strings of vibration which create different forms, including ourselves as human beings. We are this energy vibrating at light speed. So this is the theory behind it, and we're just talking scientific data and more data with the modern research on all the states of consciousness, which as I am suggesting and which as I am saying, and I'm sorry that I go all over the place, but this just comes to me and I have to repeat it because this is really important. Last year, 2022, because I'm making this at the beginning of 2023, we had the first scientific consensus statement for the future research of near-death experiences. I say it every single video because this is really, really, really important. And as I said, this year I'm going to start this playlist, and I am almost halfway into the book, writing about this research and how these near-death experiences are giving us data and a foundation and more of an experimental foundation in a way. Even though we cannot reproduce it, it just reproduces itself because everyone is dying and everyone is gonna die. The difference is that now we can gather data from the process of dying because we have modern technology and we have social media which shares experiences which before were isolated to the medical fields and to stories from nurses. Now we're looking into the phenomenon and they're saying, yes, I became a cloud of consciousness, which I traveled at the speed of thought, and so on and so forth. Pure light, pure energy. They meet this light which is conscious, and so on and so forth. So why I'm talking about the Bright-Wheeler process, talking about science, I'm talking about the scientific framework. Why do I include these weird random things about near-death experiences while I'm doing it? Because I realize that a lot of people are still not acquainted with the research on near-death experiences. A lot of people, because I've been around these circles, and a lot of people that I know about these near-death experiences, but when I go through society at large, people don't know what a near-death experience is. And we have books and we have all this data and we have all these channels coming up and all these people coming forward with their experience. And as I said, in 2022, we had this consensus statement, which I'm going to link somewhere on the screen if I haven't. As I said, all the relevant links, you can find them below. This is really, really important because it's setting a precedent for us to understand who and what we are as human beings. Okay, so this pure energy, this pure light can be potentially transformed into matter. It's the process of our 3D reality. The process can take form where tool like quantae, for example, gamma form. Okay, so this is an idea that they had. The photon Bright-Wheeler process was described theoretically by Gregory Bright and John A. Wheeler in 1934. With the advent of quantum physics, the first generation of quantum physics that looked into the world, it followed previous theoretical work of Paul Dirac on antimatter and pair annihilation happened in 1928. Paul Dirac's work proposed that electrons could have positive and negative energy states following the framework of relativistic quantum theory, but did not explicitly predict the existence of a new particle. It actually creates a new particle. So these are things that were thought of, but now we have the science to make them happen and to prove it. And this goes on a long line, which we had this last year. And this is why I'm doing this playlist, Everything is Alive, because I went deep into quantum physics. I was looking into all of these experiments of people who were looking at these old quantum experiments, thought experiments, and now we have the technology to do them. And I made that video about Wigner's friend and how they realized that two realities can be possible at the same time. It's a very weird quantum phenomenon, but this is what they're saying. It's all about the perspective of the observer. Reality is not as real as we think. Two realities can exist at the same time. And this was made from that Wigner's friend thought experiment, which they carried out with technology, and it proved that. I made a video about it. I'm gonna link it somewhere in the screen. I think I named it somewhere along the lines of Who Chooses Reality. And then while I was researching that, it was announced the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics, which was given to scientists who proved that entanglement is a real thing. They proved it a little bit some time ago. In 2015 was the last. This was a series of experiments. It was coming up from all the way from 1900s, 1960, all the way until 2015, where they had the last experiment. That it was a loophole-free experiment, where they proved that this entanglement, this spooky action at a distance, is a real thing. And they put forward the idea that the universe is not, quote-unquote, locally real. What means is there's no locality. And my argument is that why does entanglement occur? The entanglement between two particles, why does it occur? How can it travel faster than the speed of light? Because it doesn't travel. Everything seems to be connected. I made the argument that you go to ancient philosophies, all is mentalism. Everything is part of the same thing. Everything is connected. We live in the mind of Ahura Mazda. If we conceive a higher being, a higher intelligence. And how do we travel this mind of Ahura Mazda? Through the electromagnetic field, to these fields that exist outside of us. When people call it the quantum field, and some people in ancient philosophies called it different things. They called it the spirit, the ruach, maybe, in ancient Hebrew texts. So all of this is what we're talking about. I'm going to link that. If I didn't link it, you can find it below. I made these videos on the Wigner's friend experiment and on the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics. Alright, then to finish the article, it says here, the study also provides evidence of another previously theoretical prediction about the interaction between polarized photons and empty space vacuums. This is in the 20th century, especially where Hans Sternberger, Hans Heinrich Euler, and John Toll predicted that a vacuum of empty space would deflect certain polarized photons in the vacuum itself. Also polarized, this one is called vacuum birefringence, and had not been observed in any Earth-based experiment until now. So as I said again, all of this is theoretical things that now we have the science to make them happen. Like how a polarized pair of sunglasses blocks and absorbs certain light from passing through its lenses, just like regular sunglasses, how they trap this. The vacuum plus magnetic field blocks and absorbs certain light as well. This light is what then turns into the electron-positron pairs. This is what turns into matter. These electron-positron pairs are these mass particles that exist. So if you go molecules and atom, then you go beyond atom and you find neutrons, electrons, and so on and so forth. And beyond that, then you find massless particles. But below that, before that, you find these electron pulse. So they're looking into. I made this video as well about the in-depth look at the double slit experiment, where I go a little bit further into the modern research as well of the double slit experiment. What they found in one of the latter published research that I included in is that they can modulate the collapsing of the wave particle function, which means that both states actually exist at the same time, but it is only during our reality, during our perspective and our frame of reference that we see this collapsing of the, what does this mean? Go look at it if you don't have any idea what I'm talking about. Go get in depth into this double slit experiment, or just go straight into the articles and straight into the research. As I said, I always publish the research. What they're saying is that you can modulate this. What does this mean, this collapsing of the wave function? This means our reality, what we experience on our daily days. We're collapsing this soup of information that is everywhere. So the fact that they are both as waves and only as particles when we see them, it's just mind wrecking. This is why quantum physics are mind wrecking. So what they're doing here, this idea of the magnetic field interacting and how they absorb light, and this light is what becomes mass. They're looking into that small threshold between the non, and I said that in that video, and this is my argument. They're looking into this threshold between the non-physical and the physical. When does this energy transform into the physical? When do we collapse this wave? Because the idea is that everything is wave function at all times. And then we collapse it when we look at it, when consciousness look at it, and that's a whole nother different argument to be had. But this is one of the ideas, that we collapse this wave function through consciousness. And then, as I said, you have the near-death experiences, because they become consciousness, this massless consciousness, which can travel at the speed of thought, and they meet all these things in a non-corporeal form, and so on and so forth. So we have to look at that to get a little bit more reference. So the idea here is they're looking at that point where matter becomes the physical world that we know, that we understand, becomes. So they are finding out that this is an interaction between the magnetic field and light, this mysterious light here. What is this all telling us? This is all telling us that we are looking into the foundational blocks of our reality, and as years go by, like as months go by, and then sometimes I look at the research, and 3 months away from something, there's a new research going on which is saying something interesting, and it goes into one of these articles from the different sites that I've been putting here in this outline, and they go mainstream. They say things like, oh, 2 realities exist at the same time, so on and so forth, right? We're looking into the foundational blocks of our reality, and as I said, we seem to be living in some sort of matrix of information, into some sort of hologram. So what is important when we look at all of this, let's just finish this thing so I can just close it up. This research provides deeper insight into vacuums, the interaction with a light, and the relationship between energy and matter. With new powerful technology, we can confirm or deny predictions of the past and present, slowly continuing our journey to understand and appreciate the universe that makes up us and everything we know. This is exactly what I'm going at. So we're looking into our foundational reality. And what is this foundational reality? What does it have to do? Vacuums, fields, light, energy, and matter. That's it. It all seems to be put down into that. We have the technology now to take all of this into effects. And now what I was saying that we're living in a holographic reality, maybe a matrix of information. You go to the Orcar theory. I'm not going to link it in this video because I link it in every other video. So this one I'm going to leave it on the side. But everything is talking about these bits of information which are quantum, which at the end, when you look into the atom, you look into quantum physics, at the end is pure energy. We're talking about this pure energy, this light that, so okay, we're looking into these blocks of reality. We're looking into the magnetic fields, we're looking into light, energy, and matter. All of these, for a lot of people who do not understand and see the implication, might be really boring. But as I said, the argument that I'm going to be managing this year, as I'm going to be finishing this Everything is the Light theory, and moving forward into some other aspects of quantum physics, I want to go into quantum pseudo telepathy, which is going to tie into some of the alter states of consciousness as well, tying into when people meet beings on the other side, or UFO related phenomenon. As I said, these are things that are more sensitive, and if I speak about this openly, they might damage the channel. So I'm setting the scientific framework in these videos, And then I'm gonna make some other videos about going straight into analyzing near-death experiences, the UFO phenomenon, psychedelics, and so on and so forth. These are things that hurt my channel. But so I'm gonna keep this public. What I'm gonna keep public is I want to build this catalog of scientific research to put a scientific framework to all of these and different philosophies which are gonna tie into this scientific framework. And now, as I said, the argument that I want to manage this year is that when we look at all these nuts and bolts of quantum physics, what are we talking about really? Well, it seems that what's happening is that, okay, these fields are real, this energy is real, the ether, if you want to call it that, the light, everything is the light, but it seems that these things are conscious. They're not just nuts and bolts. The fields themselves are conscious. Consciousness. This is what the channel is about as well. Consciousness. What is consciousness? So, as I said, I'm going to repeat it one more time before I finish this video. What I'm going to be looking at is how when people have near-death experiences, they go out of body, and some other people just go out of body naturally. What they experience is that they do not become their bodies, they become something else, and they have different ways to reference to this. They say they have 360 vision, they say that they become like a larger thing that can move at the speed of thought, and the first video on that series is going to be about what it's like to exist as a disincarnate entity, and I go into a near-death experience where they explain a little bit into detail how does it feel to perhaps exists as a field of information, which is, it begs the question, when we think about, as I said, what is a field of energy, a field of information? We talk about electromagnetic fields, like a grid that is all over the universe. If we're living in some sort of hologram, it seems, and this grid has information, has energy in it, and this grid creates matter itself, because as Einstein said, we think about matter in terms of energy within fields, not matter creating the fields. So if these fields in ancient times were called spirit, were called different things, what exactly are we talking about here? There's a huge mystery that we are on the brink of discovering. We used to call this divinity, we used to call this spirit, we used to call it different things. Now we're setting a scientific framework to understand perhaps a new definition for what perhaps in the past was called divinity. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.